Greetings, pen pals. Okay, I got a pen right here that I have been waiting for months and months and months. This took, I can't even tell you how long it took to get this shipped from China, but I finally arrived while I was actually away on my vacation. So it was very taunting because I saw it arrive in my email while I was away on vacation. So I had to wait nearly 2 weeks before I could actually physically get my hands on it while it was sitting and waiting for me at home. So that was even more frustrating given the number of months that I was waiting for this pen, but I am back and here it is, and I can finally do this video for you folks. So this is the Year of the Ox annual limited edition from PenBBS. This is now I think at least the second year they've done this. So last year, Year of the Rat, we had the 492, which is a very, very different, unusual design pen from PenBBS that we haven't seen before or since. And they have even outdone themselves in terms of making an unusual pen this year. So this is the model 535. So let's just go through all of it because there's a lot going on here. So as you can see, the shape of this pen is really unusual. So you've got this very interesting taper on the distal end of the pen. On the cap end, you've got this similar kind of taper, and then it flares out, and then it comes out, and then it tapers back out again. It's just curvy and wavy all over the place, but to me, not in an unattractive way. I think this kind of works from a design perspective. From a size perspective, it's a pretty decently large pen. Here it is compared to a Lamy Safari and a Pilot Metropolitan. As you can see, on length anyway, it is really much longer. Quite a bit longer. Not a hugely heavy pen. It's all pretty much acrylic with just tiny bits of metal here and there. Weighs in at 25 grams. So let's again go through all the different parts here. So let's start at the top of the cap. You have this sort of whole sort of flared out effect going on, and then you have this little medallion which says PenBBS 2021 Year of the Ox, and has a picture of a ox inset into this very sort of shiny rose gold colored medallion. You then have a this almond shaped tiny little clip. I mean, it does sort of work as a clip. You can use it, but it's one of the tiniest clips I've ever seen. It's got this almond shaped clip with a mineral, actual piece of mineral. This is called labradorite. It's not a valuable or precious stone or anything like that, but it's a mineral that's got a name, and it's called labradorite. So it's a natural material set in here, which is quite nice. The cap itself is really small, so let's just get a sense for the size of the cap. So this is how tiny the cap is. Now remember how much bigger this pen was than a Lamy Safari? Here's the size of the Lamy Safari's cap, just to put it in perspective. So we're talking about a tiny cap given the size of the pen itself. Has a nice number 6 size nib in rose gold tint. It's a steel nib, but it's rose gold colored with an ox emblem on it. And on the cap itself, it has embossed 3 things, but they're kind of hard to see. It's got the PenBBS logo. It's got the ox emblem again, and then it's got the limited edition number. Now in my case, it's 577, so it's pen number, it says 577 out of 999 embossed on the bottom of the cap. This is all on the bottom edge of the cap. It's a screw to uncap pen. It takes 1 turn to unscrew, but I will say it's a little bit tricky to screw it back on. It only apparently the threads seem to only engage in 1 spot, so you do have to kind of line it up correctly to screw it back on. But in any case, it's fine. But it's 1 full turn to unscrew, which is not bad at all, as you see. But you have to kind of find the threads to screw it back on. It's also a screw to post. You don't have to post it, obviously. It's a pretty long pen, but the cap this tiny, you're going to probably lose it. So you're going to want to probably post it on the back end there. Quite comfortable to hold. It's got this like nice curvy wavy taper. This section is really nice, and obviously because of the way the threads are located relative to the flare, you're never touching the threads or anything, so it is quite comfortable in that sense. This section, although it looks like it's separate material and you can feel a little bit of a seam there, this is glued in. You cannot unscrew this section. Let's talk about the filling mechanism a bit. So the way this works, it's the bulk filler type filling mechanism. So you have this rod that's going to come down, And what's going to happen is you're going to pull the rod all the way down. The piston is still sitting in the back of the pen, as you can see. You're going to turn it to screw the end of the rod into the piston, and then you're going to keep turning to disengage the piston from a sort of a bayonet style mount that it has at the bottom here. You're going to push this down. You're going to do this all before you submerge it in the ink. Now you're going to submerge it in the ink. You're going to then draw up your ink. Now it's going to be filling. It's going to be drawing up ink this whole time. You're going to keep going, and then you're going to turn to remount engage the bayonet mount. So what you're going to do is leave the piston at the back end of the pen. You're going to then turn this to unscrew this rod from the end of the piston, and then you're going to push down. Now you're going to keep it still over the ink bottle while you're pushing this back here, because a small amount of ink is going to get displaced as this rod travels back through the column of ink. And then you're going to screw this back down here. Now this does, much like a vacuum filler, have an integrated shutoff valve here. So it's going to store some ink in the section, and much like any other vacuum filler, to sort of get the ink flowing from the barrel to the section, you're going to have to open this up here on this back end. To open this up for cleaning, this unscrews quite easily here, and you only want to use your hands for this. You don't want to put a tool on this, because there's lots of little plastic and soft metal parts that can be quite delicate here. But this just comes right out. You can lubricate this, you can lubricate that, etc. If you want to do a fuller disassembly, you can knock out this pin here, remove this end cap, and then slide this whole business off. But again, that's not something that would typically have to be done very often. And again, like I said, this section does not come off from here. This is glued on. However, the nib unit itself does unscrew, as you can see from here. And now we're talking about a basic garden variety PenBBS number 6 nib unit, standard feed, etc. So these are interchangeable pretty much with most other PenBBS pens. So while we're at it, let's do a little lubrication of some of the parts here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put a little bit of silicone grease on the threads on the base of the section. You want to make sure you keep it away from your nib and feed here. And as we've said many times, which is not, some people don't heed this very well, but nibs and feeds and silicone grease do not get along well. So you want to keep your silicone grease away from your nib and your feed as much as possible. Okay, so that will take care of that. We then want to lubricate this stopper here on the end. We want to lubricate the piston itself, and then we want to get some silicone grease on the rod itself there. We also want to get some silicone grease on these threads here, because that's the threads that are actually sealing up the barrel. Okay, so now we can put this whole business back into place and close this up. And again, you want to just hand tighten this. You do not want to be using tools when you do this, because there's a lot of pretty delicate parts going on here. And we can wipe off any excess silicone grease, and as you can see, everything is moving along quite smoothly and nicely there. And that's the filling mechanism moving in and out. So we got everything moving along nicely there. I guess the next step would be to ink this pen up, and we're going to do that right now. And we're going to use this ink here. We're going to use this PenBBS ink, which I have yet to try. This is called PenBBS number 400, and the translation of the name is Sun Becomes Weaker. I'm guessing that it really means sunset, but in any case, I just like the name Sun Becomes Weaker. I think that's really great and poetic, and we're going to try this PenBBS ink in this pen. So let's just open up this ink, and like I said, I haven't tried this ink yet myself, so this is going to be a first time, but it's kind of a rose gold pen, and I thought this ink would actually work quite nice in it. So let's just open this up, and again, we're going to turn and disengage the mechanism from the back of the pen. We're going to now pull that rod down like we said. We're going to then turn this to engage the piston with the end of the rod. We're going to keep turning to disengage the bayonet mount, and as you can see now, this is pushing the piston all the way to the front of the pen. This is the point at which we're going to submerge the pen in the ink, and then we're going to draw. I'm going to tilt this a little bit so we can get it on camera, but as you can see, it's very nicely drawing up ink into the pen. We're going to do it kind of slowly, and as you can see, it's pretty much filling the barrel quite substantially with ink. I'm going to say that's about an 80% full fill, which is a boatload of ink for a pen like this. And there we go. So now what we're going to do is we're going to turn this mechanism to disengage the piston from the rod, but again, we want to make sure that this is still in the ink bottle, because as we push the rod back, again, this is very hard to do under the camera, but as we push the piston back in, it's going to displace some ink, and so we want to make sure that goes back into the bottle, and we're going to push that down. We now can turn and close that all up, and there we go. And we got a pretty nice amount of ink filling that up. And again, this filling mechanism actually works quite well, and I've been quite happy with it in the other PenBBS pens that I have that have it, mainly the other 355 variants that we have. So that is the pen. That is how we fill it. But of course, you want to see how this pen writes, and I'm going to show you that right now. Okay, folks, what we're writing with here today is a PenBBS model 535, and this is the year of the Ox limited edition. And this has a number 6 steel nib in fine, and this pretty much writes just like all other PenBBS fine nibs do, so it's smooth, it flows well, etc. etc. No surprises there. I've never had one of these PenBBS nibs disappoint me really at all. Like I said, my only gripe about the PenBBS nibs is the lack of variety. They did just introduce a new calligraphy nib. I wasn't able to get one. They came out in a very limited edition. Hopefully the next run of them I'll get one of those. But it's nice. It's a like I said, it's got the rose gold tone to it, which is nice. It matches sort of the rose gold trim on this this piece here, and on the clip as well. So it's pretty nicely. It's a pretty nice pen. Again, I just like the aesthetics on this. Doesn't probably work for everybody. If this is not your thing, I totally get that. But I think this really works, and I think this is quite a pretty pen. And again, a unique pen for sure. They have really just totally gone outside the box in terms of their other pens, which I think is a really cool thing, especially to do in these yearly limited edition pens. So that is pretty much how this pen writes. It's just, like I said, nice pen. It was probably worth the wait. One thing I'd like you folks to do, hopefully it will be worth your few seconds of time it'll take to do it, would be to please like, comment, share, and subscribe. If you could do these things, I would be very much appreciative. So that's pretty much it for this PenBBS 355. But let's talk about this ink now for a minute, shall we? All right, as we said, this ink is PenBBS number 400, and they call this really poetic title, Sun Becomes Weaker. Again, I would think that would be sunset, but I just like the name Sun Becomes Weaker. I think that sounds really cool. This is sort of a brownish slash burnt orange kind of sienna, sepia kind of thing. Let's take a look at it on the color card and compare it to a few other inks. This is our Sun Becomes Weaker on the color card. As you can see, it's still wet because I just swabbed this a few seconds ago. Let's compare it to some other inks. Papier Plume Sepia, not completely unlike that ink. Very, very comparable. This is a bit darker, but not by a lot. Diamine Terracotta, again, is a darker ink, but again in the same general genre here. A closer one might be Diamine Cherry Sunburst. Again, very, very similar ink, at least on the swab. The lines, though, are quite a bit darker on Diamine Cherry Sunburst. And same thing with Diamine Ancient Copper, a bit darker and a bit redder. But that's the general family that we're talking about for the PenBBS Sun Becomes Weaker. I think it's a pretty good choice for this pen. I think these brownish type inks complement the rose gold quite nice. That's what this ink looks like on this Rhodia paper. Let's take a quick look at what it looks like on Tomoe River paper, shall we? All right, as we said, we're writing here with PenBBS number 400, which is also known more poetically as Sun Becomes Weaker. And this is on Tomoe River paper. Speaking of Tomoe River paper, in case you guys don't know, apparently they're going through some crisis in the Tomoe River paper manufacturing vein. Apparently there was literally something like, and I've heard this from a few sources, I'm not quite sure how true the story is, there's literally only one machine that actually makes the Tomoe River paper, and that machine's being taken out of commission and they're replacing it with another machine. So newer Tomoe River paper, like from going forward, will be different because the manufacturing process will be different. But this is a notebook I've had for a few years. So this is definitely older, original Tomoe River paper, if you will. Maybe at some point, if I can get my hands, maybe in a year or so, of some newer run Tomoe River paper, I'll do some sort of a quasi-scientific comparison. But I'm not really super picky about the Tomoe River paper. I happen to like it, but it's not like the be-all and end-all for me. But I've heard from some people who just love this paper and can't live without it, that they're literally having a crisis over this because apparently the original Tomoe River paper will be no more because the manufacturing process is changing. That's at least what I've heard. In any case, that's what this ink looks like on Tomoe River paper. Very pretty ink, nice looking ink, and a good choice. I haven't really written. This is just my first experience with this ink because I just opened the bottle and filled this pen for the first time with it. So I'm going to use it and see how that works for me, but so far I'm liking it quite a bit, and I like this pen, I have to say. I'm very happy with it. I think PenBBS really kind of knocked it out of the park with this one, much more so than the 492 last year. The 492 last year was a great idea, and aesthetically looks great. It's a great looking pen, but like I said, this filling mechanism is just too gimmicky and too twitchy to be really practical. But I think I'll give them an A+ for effort on that one. They really tried, and it is cool, and it kind of works. I mean, so it's fine for what it is. It's an enthusiast pen. Either you're a magnet enthusiast or you're a fountain pen enthusiast. Either way, you're going to like the pen. But this one is a much more straightforward, tried and true filling mechanism that works really well, and very pleased. In any case, I think I've talked enough, and I hope you enjoyed this video. As always, until we see each other again, I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.